I'm gonna make a video discussing the idea of an all-in-one PC or all-in-one Mac computer, whatever. The idea is that instead of having a tower with a monitor separate, you combine them both in one. So, um, the thing is, it's it's supposedly more efficient. All you have to do is purchase this big box of an all-in-one PC or Mac or whatever, um, and unbox it and just plug it in. And the only thing you really need left is a mouse and a keyboard. Super simple, super convenient. Um, and the bonus got touchscreen, right? So, um, let's consider several things. Um, like, um, we're not gonna discuss specifications on all that. There's plenty of those videos on the internet, so many, and plenty of websites on that. So, and we got entire industries of, not industry, but you got a bunch. This could be a specialty of its own. But anyway, um, the thing is, it was actually recent. You don't see the all-in-one PC computer in the early 2000s or the late 2000s. It's definitely a recent acquisition from the late 2010. Um, but there's also other convenience. First of all, you don't have to, if you're alone, you have a lot of money, and you have an apartment, you don't have to call anybody, you don't have to call friends and family to, and I'm not saying these are for old people, no. Like, you don't have to call somebody, to explain, the power, computer component that I think a lot of people have this problem. It's a little inconvenient for some people in the 2000s or even 1990s, right? So in the late 2010s, they decided to make an all-in-one computer for rich yuppies or business people or career women or whatever. They just purchased this computer for $1,000. Really convenient, really easy setup. Just plug it in, that's it, right? Um, and if they live in an apartment, there's probably already internet there, and all you need is the user and password that your landlord set up, or there's probably something you can plug into. That makes it super convenient, right? It's super easy setup, everything's built in. Just use a computer, and that's it. Um, no. So that makes it really easy to use. Um, let's also discuss the satisfaction of purchasing it in person. And we also could discuss, actually, let's discuss something else. Let's discuss, the wonders of the capitalism and, it's not, that's philosophy. That's something I'm not really qualified to discuss. Not because I don't have credentials, but because I really don't understand the subject. So, that got me thinking that the United States of America is not. You have to consider that earlier in U.S. history, that the culture was very similar, even if the components were different. So, this is difficult for a lot of people to explain, and I think you have to read a very specific history book written by a very specific author um, to explain what I'm saying, but without having to watch a video on it. To just read it, right? So I haven't found the book yet. I'm not going to. I might try to find the book and might not be able to find it. So um, I'd say there's probably a 10% chance I wouldn't be able to find it with that much effort. Um, So let's see. Now, obviously, if I spent 10,000 hours on the subject, then there's about a 70% chance that I'll be able to find the book, right? But that basically ate up a huge amount of your life. So let's just say that. All right. So let's try to explain what I'm saying. Um, so back then, before the advent of the internet, when they just invented the telephone, and the phone company, a lot of people communicated by snail mail. You had flea markets, you had brick and mortar stores. They called this mom and pop stores or whatever. You didn't have the internet. You certainly couldn't purchase stuff on Amazon. You did not have these. Um, you didn't have. You had whatever the precursor of taxis or. You didn't have ride share like Uber or Lyft or anything. Certainly didn't have cell phones back then. So what time era specifically? Let's just say right after World War II. So, or even the 20s or whatever. So let's consider the flea market back then. And also, we could also discuss the immigration is often referred to Ellis Island, which is again back then you didn't have airports with the fancy technology, and you certainly didn't have. You probably have to have passports and visas back then, but it's certainly a lot more formal in terms of. I forgot what time era specifically, but when they had this, so where you immigrated to whatever it is, Ellis Island, whatever, and whatever name you had that was from whatever country you were from, you just the immigration official just gave you a name, right? And I'm like, so yeah, this was often a time where people traveled by ships and boats, right? So not always, but usually. Um, um, it's a very different type of immigration, right? So, um, obviously, this is a huge contrast to the lifestyle we have here in America. So, are we discussing the American dream? No, we're not. Um, just making a comparison between the two times. So, how could I say that the culture is practically identical, especially if you're comparing post World War II to that would be difficult to make I can't really explain it without an example. Or why even have it to explain it? So, and you also have to consider that not all countries can be compared this way, right? So, um, so if you're talking about the era after World War II, some countries are not at all similar in culture between that time frame, that time, let's say, 1945 to 1949, to compare to say 2024, right? Um, the United States was very similar back then, culture, in terms of who gets arrested. And I'm like, what does that exactly refer to? I think it's a topic for another day, right? And I can't make videos longer than say 13 minutes because otherwise it's not efficient, right? You just don't have all that. I cannot just ramble on a subject like that like a professor and expect to make a video over 13 minutes, right? So, where do we where does this draw the line, right? Like, you cannot just get a time machine and just go back in time. No. That doesn't work, right? You can't do that without a time machine, right? So, therefore, it's like comparing apples to oranges, and people, a lot of people compare apples to oranges and things that just don't make any sense. And it's just like, what else are we going to discuss about the culture? The religion, the um, whatever the sociology. Sociology the subject, I never really studied that subject. Sociology, so I can't really describe what it is. It has a very basic level in terms of history, right? In terms of world history or just plain history, right? Some people they have this knowledge. Um, my father is he understands history, right? Even if he never formally studied it in a university. He would probably be much better suited to discuss this than me. But I will still try to discuss it because even if I don't have the, the necessary knowledge, and that's quite all right. That's the nice thing about YouTube is that you can discuss things like that without the credentials. Or even if I were not to publish this on YouTube and instead publish it on something like Dailymotion or Vimeo, either